A couple of things I want to go over from the previous video that I either did not notice or didn't cover since they were pretty long to begin with. One of which is a musical difference in the episode Exodus. In the movie version, Mum Ra's theme plays when Lion-O catches the sword.
This sword? I know this sword. It's... oh, I can't remember. It's...
But in the syndicated version,
this sword? I know this sword. It's... oh, I can't remember. It's...
this was actually pointed out to me by longtime ThunderCats fan and channel supporter Bushman. He has an ear for music that I flatly don't, so he brought it up to me in a conversation and I felt the need to address it. Neither of us really know why this change was made officially, but I think the syndicated run has the scene play out better. Bushman is also responsible for the HD footage that I've been using for the first 4 videos I'm putting out in this series. He has painstakingly been upgrading the footage for the VHS movie version for a while now, and the work is certainly appreciated, especially since Warner Brothers does not seem to care. At all. Fans tend to do a better job of handling the series than the license holder does anyway. I appreciate the help and support, Bushman. I'm also using a new screen filter for the clips and the video, so hopefully keep the copyright people off my back. This screen is provided by Rodimus Primal, and I also very much so appreciate his help. In the Unholy Alliance, there are a few changes I didn't cover last time. One of which is the added line in the scene where Mum Ra flees the battle. Here's the movie cut.
He is called Mum Ra, the ever-living.
And the syndicated cut.
He is called Mum Ra, the ever-living. That's all I know.
There's a reason this line is added, and it's also in the script itself, because between the two versions, some scenes are actually swapped. In the movie version, Mum Ra flies off and the ThunderCats talk before Mum Ra is shown as going back to his pyramid. In the syndicated version, the order is flipped. Mum Ra flies off, and it cuts to him appearing at the pyramid again, then it closes out with the ThunderCats talking. This is likely a change done so the episode comes out on a high note with the ThunderCats instead of ending in Mum Ra's tomb. Either fortunately or unfortunately, based on where you sit on this, there won't be much more of these differences to point out after these last 2 videos on the first 4 episodes. I also need to point out that these things don't even cover the script differences for these 2 episodes. I honestly have enough, I'll just do separate videos on them alone. Speaking of which, this episode has a ton of differences too, so I'll absolutely be doing a video on those differences as well. So for now, we'll do these videos on the syndicated releases going forward. Let's move on to the 3rd episode, Berbils. Premiering on September 11th, 1985, this episode opens on the Black Pyramid where Mum Ra is looming over his cauldron, expositing frustration over the fact that the Eye of Thundera is finally in his reach, but he doesn't have it yet. He notices that Lion-O isn't even at the camp, but decides now would be a good time to destroy the rest of the ThunderCats, ending with the most unique laugh of the show. Meanwhile, the ThunderCats are looking over the vehicle Panthro built. The Thunder Tank.
I must admit, Panthro, I didn't think even you could do it.
Are you kidding? You're looking at the champion scrounger of the universe.
Chitara notices a storm is brewing, but shortly after they realize it's boulders raining down instead of water. Most of the ThunderCats take refuge in the wreckage of the ship, but Panthro stays with his tank. Once the storm is over, we see the landing site is completely buried, but a pair of claws breaks through the ground and Panthro is revealed with his undamaged tank. An irritated Panthro then uses the tank to lift the wreckage out of the ground, and Tigra commenting the storm clearly wasn't natural. We then cut to Lion-O and Snarf arguing about being so far from the base, and Snarf lamenting the lack of safety. After Snarf feuds with a local animal, Lion-O falls into a trap, where Snarf tells him he'll help.
Yeah, I'll get you out, Lion-O. Stay right there.
There's nothing else I can do.
Snarf procures some rope, but isn't capable of being steady enough where Lion-O can climb out. Snarf's assistance is halted, though, when something off-screen lassos him and drags him off, leaving Lion-O in the hole until he also gets lassoed and dragged up. This is where we meet the creatures that captured the pair, robotic bear creatures. Lion-O is not too keen on being mocked by them. Through pantomiming, the creatures explain that they know he crashed on the planet, and they take the pair away to meet their leader. We check back in on the ThunderCats, and Chitara is worrying about Lion-O being gone so long, and Panther stating that Lion-O is a man now, after Tigra comments that Lion-O would have summoned them if there was trouble. Cutting back to Lion-O and Snarf, they have both been tied to posts. The leader of these creatures approaches and asks if they fell in their trap. He then produces a knife and proceeds to cut the pair free. He introduces himself and his race. the Berbils. The pair is then led to the Burble village and is introduced to Berbils' family and people, Snarf enthralled with their food. The piece is cut short as an alarm sounds throughout the village. They're under attack by creatures called Trollogs. The Berbils attempt to fight back using stun darts, but it doesn't work, apparently by design.
Those stun darts aren't doing much good.
No, they never do.
Then why do you use them?
Because we would not want to hurt anyone.
Then why don't you just let the Trollocs march into your village and take your Robert Burble fruit?
And behave like cowards?
Lion-O, frustrated by both the attackers and the Berbils' ineffective tactics, leaps into battle to confront the Trollogs, driving them away. Lion-O apologizes for interfering, but is surprised that the Berbils feel pity for the Trollogs. Apparently, they're also victimized.
The mountaintops above their caves are covered with those bushes. But the giant ores who live there won't let the Trollocs pick them unless they bring them Robert Burble fruit.
Using sight beyond sight, Lion-O sees that the Giantors are headed their way. Heeding Snarf's requests, Lion-O summons the other ThunderCats who join the fight to beat the Giantors, after which Lion-O introduces the others to the Berbils. Going back to Mum-Ra, he laments on the ThunderCats not dying and comments on Lion-O befriending the Berbils, noticing how they'll now have an endless food supply. In response, Mum-Ra transforms into a swarm of locusts and flies towards the Burble village. Back at the village, the Berbils gather around the ThunderCats and the moral of the episode is shown.
Friends help each other.
Then, the locust swarm attacks. The swarm gathers together into a massive locust. Lion-O engages it and forces it to fly away from the village. Once above a volcano, the giant locust dissipates into a swarm again, and Lion-O plummets towards the lava. While this happens, the sword releases from the scabbard. Lion-O notices it and reaches for it, but it's out of reach. This is when Jaga appears and gives Lion-O info about the sword, a new command.
Call to it, Lion-O. Call, and it will obey.
Lion-O takes his advice.
Sword of Omens, come to my hand. I, Lion-O, command it.
The sword then flies Lion-O out of the volcano, landing him safely on the ground. Mum-Ra returns to his pyramid and states he must do better next time. As he returns to his sarcophagus, he states that time means nothing to him. Lion-O arrives back at the ThunderCats camp, and the Berbils arrive with a feast to thank the ThunderCats for their help, Tigra insisting that the Berbils join them. As night falls, Robert Bill comments on Tigra's blueprints for the cat's lair, wondering how the ThunderCats will build it when there's not many of them. Bill asks for a minute and huddles with the other Berbils, coming back to the ThunderCats with a proposal.
We will help you build your home.
Tigra thanks him for the offer, but says the undertaking is too large for them to accept that help. This is when Bill responds back with the show's lesson.
You said we are friends. Friends help each other.
He has a point, Tigra. I mean, doesn't he?
It does indeed, Lion-O.
Tigra, being consistent, graciously accepts their help as the show closes on them feasting, and a toast to the new cat's lair.
A toast to the cat's lair.
Writer's notes from Leonard Starr. Where did we get our ideas from? Stories just came out of thin air, really. We've been writing for so long that they sometimes manufactured themselves at some point. The trouble with the Berbils was the voices they got for them. Couldn't understand them. That was the fault there. I guess it was my fault that I introduced these robots, but I wasn't responsible for the voices, although I did make suggestions occasionally. I never liked the voice of Snarf either. I wanted him to be like one of the dummies of Edgar Bergen. The voice they had for him never pleased me, but there's no wrong way to have a hit, so it all sort of worked out. Now for my thoughts. The episode works to further flesh out Third Earth's world building, showing that not only are there other creatures on this planet, but not all of them are evil like Mum-Ra. It also answers the question of how the ThunderCats will eat once their rations run out. On top of that, this episode also demonstrates that Mum-Ra can change into multiple forms, something we see pretty often as the show continues. I especially like how they show him transforming at the end of the episode, where it's just a puff of essentially smoke. It's an interesting callback to Dracula. A nice touch was him specifically turning into a swarm of locusts, though. An Egyptian devil priest turning into one of the 10 plagues is an interesting callback, to say the least. Another thing we'll see in the future episodes regularly is the Thunder Tank. This is Panthro's baby and will be a series staple. When you ask 80s kids about fictional vehicles of the era and what they'd like to own, they always respond with the A-Team van, the DeLorean, or KITT. Some even say the Airwolf. But for me, the Thunder Tank all the way. This sucker is nigh indestructible, and save flying, it's an all-terrain vehicle. Let's talk about Snarf for a moment, though. People like to rag on him for being annoying or afraid, but if you pay attention, you'll see Snarf will throw himself in harm's way if it means protecting Lion-O. I did a whole video about it years ago, but Snarf's purpose wasn't for you to identify as a kid. It was a character your parents would understand. Snarf comments like one of your parents do. That's why you didn't like him as a kid. The essential moral of this episode is that friends help each other, along with not judging people prematurely. The ThunderCats have greater strength, but the Berbils have better numbers and resourcefulness. There's also the underlying moral that sometimes bullies lash out because they themselves are bullied. This does not exempt them from consequences for their actions, though. And unlike modern shows or even shows at that time, ThunderCats doesn't teach you to run to authority to help. It teaches you to fight back, using violence as necessary. A good lesson. Fun fact about the Berbils, though, they reproduce like crazy. Don't ask me how, I don't know, and I don't want to know. But they're on Third Earth because they ran out of room on their home planet. Another fun fact about the episode is the blueprints you see of the lair. It's a fun fact because it's just a simplified version of the model sheets. That's it for this week's episode. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments. Special thanks as always to my patrons. If you want to join the Patreon, the link is in the description. You can also join the community Discord if you want. I'll catch you all next week for the next episode. Take care.